It's the binary thinking, which is going to go to the worst, like it's going to swing the pendulum to the worst possible thing. It's the pressure to like, you need to make a decision right now. If not, then everything's going to end. It's the life or death sense. And then it's also the aspect of these like false endings of things, these false narratives of what the possibility is actually going to be. And then that's going to keep us in that place longer than we need to be.
And when you get deeply rooted into your body, even in a moment of fear, for me at least, that's what's allowed me to actually see the truth beyond the fear. Not the false evidence that the fear is trying to show me, but the truth that's on the other side of that. All right, everyone. Well, we are live for our latest podcast, and I cannot wait to dive into this conversation today with you, Jaggers. I know that this conversation, when we just briefly touched on it in our last podcast, was really alive for a lot of people. And I know it's been alive for a lot of my own clients too. And that's just the conversation around fear and how it shows up in our life and how it affects, honestly, like a lot of facets of our life when it goes untouched or when it starts to control us too much. So I can't wait to dive into this podcast with you today.
Yeah, I can't wait either. And fear is an interesting one. Inside of the training, we talk about a lot of the core emotions where it comes to anger, sadness, grief, joy, happiness, but we don't often talk about fear because there's different facets to fear. Fear is complex, especially when it comes to being a human, right?
Yeah. And let's kind of expand on that a little bit of like, how does fear show up differently for us as humans versus just like animals out in nature, right? Like you can see if you just approach a wild animal out in nature, it kind of just goes trotting off, but it doesn't really allow that instant to control itself moving forward, where humans are a bit different in that way.
Yeah, it's a bit different. Well, first off, let's kind of break down how fear shows up in the mind versus the body.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to an animal or any other species outside of being a human, fear doesn't always show up and linger in the mind. It's a body response that just is there to keep you safe. So in the body, fear often shows up, as like if you're public speaking, you're getting jitters, you're starting to sweat. Maybe you're not able to like utilize the function of your legs as much. I know when I was younger and I had a fear of heights, my legs would kind of just like freeze up. Which, if anybody's had that experience, when I was teaching myself how to skateboard when I was really young, like the more fear I had, the less I could get my body to actually do the thing I wanted it to do.
Yeah. Almost
so
like that
there's the
fear is
aspect
contracting.
Yeah, the fear is contracting and it's taking over your nervous system involuntarily. Like you can't actually do the physical thing that you need to do. So there's the aspect of it showing up in the physical body. And it's much more distinct from like the emotions, right? When you have anger, it's usually kind of tightness in the jaw. Sadness, you get this kind of overwhelming heaviness. But fear actually it shuts down the entire body. I'm getting a couple people that say they can't hear us, but Adam, you can hear me well.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Cool. All right. So when it comes to the mind, it's a little bit different, right? It turns into this binary thinking that a lot of us get caught in, where as soon as you catch yourself in the binary thinking, where it's like, it's one thing or the other that's going to happen, right? A lot of us, that's an incredible sign that you're in a place of fear, is if I don't do this, then this is going to happen. But that's not how life works, right? There's a multitude of different opportunities that could actually happen. And usually we're afraid of something. Like, take for example, if you're getting fired from your job, usually the mind will go to, well, that means I'm going to be homeless and I'm going to be on the streets, right?
Yeah.
Versus, wow, actually, me getting fired from this job, it could actually, there's so many other doors that could open for me, and maybe something more alignment comes into place. But that's, if you really watch the mind in fear, it really turns into this binary thinking. It also creates a tremendous amount of like false endings, right? Our mind directly goes to the worst possible thing that can happen, because evolutionary, like from an evolutionary standpoint, fear, and we can see this in animals that also have nervous systems, the fear is the thing that's keeping you safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so through our our evolutionary biology and our transformation to becoming human, that same function is still there, that it's going to the worst possible thing, that's I'm going to be eaten alive. And so we continue to just go to the worst possible outcome. So binary thinking is one, false endings is another, and then the other aspect is like feeling like you need to, like there's a pressure to make a decision right now in this moment, and if I don't make that decision right now, then the world's going to collapse on me, right? So those are three kind of signs that you can see the fear in the mind. Versus the body, it shows up as just a massive contraction.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like how does someone start to notice the difference when they're truly feeling fear in the body versus this almost like false fear that's stemmed from just like the spiraling of the thoughts and all of the stories that we're telling ourselves around either the thing that we're moving through or something that might come forward?
So, I mean, this is why somatic work is so important, because we can't actually become aware of it if we're only stuck in the mind.
Yeah.
Most of us we're talking heads in a way, where our identity and everything that we are is going on inside of our head. Everything is going on inside of our head. So, um, it's so important to start to understand and to actually develop the connection with your body, because you are not even going to be able to notice when you're actually in that contracted fear state if you're just living in your head, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to notice how it shows up and stagnates your other emotions if you're just living in your head. So that's why this work is so powerful, which a lot of people, it brings up a lot of fear inside of them because they haven't been connected to their emotions or their physical body, or maybe the actual pains that have been in their body. But once you actually start to develop a relationship with it, it becomes this incredible a compass for you in a way, and you can actually start to distinguish. Like if I'm in binary thinking and I don't have any other place to go outside of my mind, well, then I'm only going to get stuck in that binary thinking.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And it's like if you can't stop the spiral from happening, right? That mental story that just keeps spiraling you down more and more and more into that sensation of fear. Well, there's no ability to actually use that fear, like what you were just kind of touching on, is more of like this guidance system to help direct us towards that thing that we actually want to do versus pushing us away more from it.
Yeah, we see this in I was listening to, I can't remember who it was. It was maybe Alain de Botton, who's a really awesome philosopher. And there was a quote from him that was, and it was around art specifically. But the quote was, "In the mind of a genius is where you will find your neglected thoughts." And what's fascinating is the genius is just the person that has had the ability to express and say the things that most of us have been too afraid to say.
Mm. Yeah.
in the mind of an artist as well. Like an artist is creating something that's that they find fascinating, that they love, that they want to express in the world. But a lot of us, we don't end up actually putting it out there because we're afraid of people not liking it, or it's the fear that blocks our ability to express ourselves out in the world. Another example of this is, say I'm working a job in a corporation where I'm on a team and I'm afraid to actually speak my mind. Well, and I'm also wanting a promotion at the same time, right?
Yeah.
um, but if I'm actually never going to speak my mind, then people aren't going to experience my value, and therefore I think I'm never going to actually get the promotion from it, right?
Yeah.
So there's the fear of actually just laying our cards on the table a lot of the time. And this is the human fear that's incredibly complex because we have reputations, we have like all of these social dynamics. We feel like there is so much for us to lose in a way.
Sure. And I feel like that's the interesting paradox of fear, right? Because we're afraid of not doing the thing at the same time being afraid of doing the thing. And there's equal ramifications to, well, if we don't do the thing, leaning into those fears versus doing the thing and leaning into those fears. Like, this is the thing I've always been really curious about fear, is why is it that we'd almost rather stay in that uncomfortable situation and not speak our truth, not actually say what we want from life, because the fear of what comes after that is almost greater than the fear of just staying in the uncomfortable situation that you're in right now.
Yeah. Do you have an example for that, Adam?
I do, actually. And I'll rewind the clock back to when I first joined Somatic, when I took the very first online training. I was running a home theater installation business. I was also a part-time CrossFit coach, which was my original thought for getting in the wellness industry, getting into a place of being able to help people. CrossFit just turned into people just wanting to make their bodies look good and not really being interested in the mind or the psyche, or like, how can they actually feel good in their body regardless of what it looks like. And so in moving through the training and getting close to like entering into practicum, this fear came up around like, okay, what if I really, really want to do this and it doesn't work out? What if this is the avenue that I really want to go down to get me out of these other jobs that I don't really want to do anymore? But what if I fail? What if, I don't have what it takes to actually hold space for somebody? What if I think I'm a better space holder than what I truly am? And it's like the spiral of the imposter syndrome and these fears of all of these what ifs, because my mind was conditioned to focus on what could go wrong instead of what could go right. There wasn't really the fear of like, well, what if I don't do this? What is my life going to look like then if I don't actually choose this?
Yeah. Incredible. And part of understanding fear is, and just like trauma, is understanding that it is actually, it's not your fault for being that way. It's kind of like we have to look at it as this is the system that's been developed for thousands of years, and this is what we're working with right now.
Yeah.
So how do I start to become aware of it and start to see the signs of it? And the quicker I can become aware of it, the quicker I can shift out of it. So it's not going to go away. It's kind of like the inner critic voice in our head. It's not going to go away, but developing the relationship to it is going to allow us to actually make a new decision from it. We're not going to be stuck in that state, right?
It's more of like learning to befriend the fear instead of trying to push the fear away, instead of trying to like resist and suppress the fear.
Yeah, because the fear is, I'll give you an example. If I am afraid to feel we're not actually like, we're, we're more afraid of the resistance than we're actually afraid of the fear. Meaning that, if I am, let me think of an example here. If I am wondering if I should be in a relationship right now, but if I should be in the relationship that I am in right now, and I have just this absolute fear of hurting the other person, or I have this absolute fear of being alone. Well, that fear is going to be the thing that's clouding my vision to be able to tell me if I'm actually if this relationship is good or not. If I actually like let myself go through the fear of maybe I lose, if I'm not afraid of losing this relationship, and I'm not afraid of telling them my actual truth, then I can actually see clearly whether or not this relationship is for me or not. So the fear is the thing that's clouding, the actual, like the truth of the matter.
So how does somebody go about trying to like clear that cloud without numbing the fear or without resisting the fear, still leaning into the fear so that it can move through the system and create that clarity that then can show you like, this is actually the direction you're meant to go in, even if it's bringing up that fear?
Yeah. Well, there's there's many ways to go about it. One is, you have to start to develop an awareness in how it shows up for you. And usually it's always where there is resistance, right? That's why they say, feel the fear, do it anyways. So wherever the resistance is at is usually where the fear is at. And then first, like, working at it from a bottom up perspective is, how is it showing up in my body right now? If I need to shake, then letting myself shake. I have to find a way to process it through my body first, because the mind is going to reflect the state of my body. And, I'll give you an example. If you are stressed and contracted or worried about, not getting your next meal, well, then every thought that you're going to have is based on that state of your body of getting your next meal.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to work at it. Like, ideally, we work at it from a top down perspective on the mind and also the body as well. But what I've found to be the most supportive is actually, working with the body first, processing it through the body, and ideally like having, you cannot negate the power of having somebody with you that does not have an agenda, that can create a space of safety within their nervous system, where you can kind of just process through the physical aspect of it first, and then the emotional aspect. And a lot of the times, the fear is, there's anger around the fear, there's sadness around the fear, there's grief around the fear, processing through the emotions. So that way, it kind of, once you do that, it starts to free the mind of the binary thinking, of the false endings, of the pressure to make a decision right now. And what I would say is, one of the key ways to see that you're in fear is, like, most of us have a deeper connection to our mind than we have to our body. So if I catch myself in this binary thinking, well, then cool, that's going to tell me I need to actually go process this fear through my body, and then come back to the mind. When you have an issue of the mind, you don't go to the mind to try to solve the problem. So most of us can resonate with that. We'll see the issue happening in our mind first, and then we'll try to spiral in that, which is not going to help us. So it's like, cool, I have the issue in the mind. Let's actually go to the body first, and then let's come back to the mind and see what changed. Because my partner and I have a rule that it's like, if I'm having a bad day, I'm not allowed to trust any of the thoughts that I'm having. Like if I'm having a stressed out day, or if I'm like, if there's something just, if I'm feeling off, I'm not actually allowed to trust the thoughts that are going on in my mind right now.
Yeah.
So it's been a powerful shift for us because, if someone's tired or they're stressed out or they're hungry or whatever the physical thing that's going on that's causing them to have a stressed out day, a lot of the times that will then leak into all of our other relationships, right? And
Yeah.
the mind will start to spiral down to the worst possible thing that will happen. So at that point in time, we call it, well, right now we're only allowed to have a nonverbal conversation.
That's a really, really beautiful way of trying to compartmentalize where you're at in the moment, right? Like being able to recognize that if you're trying to make decisions from that place of fear, they're all decisions that are going to be based on false evidence that's appearing real, right? The acronym for fear
Yeah.
is that we start spiraling through all of these thoughts of all the various different ways that everything can continue to get worse than where it's already at. Like I feel like that really is the fear that society actually does a really good job trying to push on us, is that things are continuing to get worse. Things are continuing to spiral out of control, and they show us all the different areas in the world where this is happening. But if we can actually take a pause, take a deep breath, recognize that we're sitting in that fear, and that fear, like what you touched on earlier, is creating this cloud that we're not actually
Mhm.
seeing everything in the moment clearly. And if we're not seeing
Yeah.
it clearly, like I think of my wife wears contacts and glasses, and like if she takes her glasses or contacts out, like she can't see 3 feet in front of her. Like to me, that's almost like what fear is. When fear takes over the body, it's like completely obscures your vision to where something that
Yeah.
yesterday looked really beautiful and looked like an amazing opportunity now actually looks like the most scary thing that you could possibly do.
Yeah, absolutely. So another way to understand this, and this is a really helpful frame that just that I have in general, is to, like, we forget to look at each other as we're animals. We just forget to look at, like, we are animals, and we're also humans, but we have a lot of animalistic tendencies that you just cannot bypass the nature of. And I spoke about this in the beginning. It's like we have to understand what we're working with.
Mm,
We're working with a nervous system that's absolutely ancient, that wasn't dealing with social reputation, with finances, with Instagram, with social media, with all these things. We're working with a system that wasn't designed for this. That actually is pretty similarly designed to most animals, where it's like there's a fear that happens in this moment. I have a physical response that tries to save me, and then I can go back about my life, and I'm not going to be inside of this fear. Versus a lot of us have, it's like a chronic fear that's there all of the time. So that being said, is, when like, this kind of goes to one of the four agreements that is really important as well, is you start to not take things as personal, right? If I
yeah.
know that my partner has had a stressful day, that's putting them more into their animalistic side of things, that's probably changing the thoughts that they have and spiraling them towards the negative side of things. Well, I'm actually not going to take the things that she's saying to me as personally. And I'm sure as hell not going to, like, get into an argument right now, because it's not going to go anywhere. And I saw someone that had a question around a nonverbal conversation. That is a kind of a card that we pull anytime either of us are in a like dealing with something that we can tell that it actually needs to be processed through our body first before we try to talk about it. Is, for the rest of the evening, like, or for the next hour or two, like, I only want to have nonverbal conversation, meaning that we can, you know give each other loving touch, or just like, do you want to be held right now? Or we can co-regulate with each other, or I can literally get on the ground and start shaking and moving my body,
Yeah.
and she can be there to support me in that. And that's the beauty of having someone, having people in your life that have this sort of somatic literacy, is that when something's coming up, we can actually not need to talk about it fully, but first try to process it through the body, give it some space to digest physically first, and then come back to it,
Yeah.
right? Because we know neither of us are actually probably thinking clearly in this moment.
It's such a beautiful place to be able to like structure your relationship in that way, right? And I know I'm sure I'm not the only one that can think of like, man, how helpful and how many arguments would this have saved to like, had this actually been implemented like
Yeah.
way early on in the relationship. So
Yeah.
for people that are thinking to themselves like, okay, how do I either start implementing this either in just the relationship with myself or the relationship with my partner, or even just their relationship with fear, like what's the stepping stone that someone should take to begin to kind of reframe that relationship?
Yeah. That fear is there to keep you safe, and it's doing the best job that it possibly can. It's an intelligent response. And so, from that place, understanding that's an intelligent response, you can start to see, like, okay, it's trying to help me in this moment. It's telling me to kind of just like, it's shutting down my body because it's afraid that I'm going to fall off this cliff, right?
Mm.
Cool. Well, feeling that fear in that moment, the if I'm resisting it, well, then it's going to keep me contracted, and then I'm actually going to have more of a chance of falling off the cliff, right?
Yeah.
Versus if I actually just notice, breathe through it, take a moment, titrate it, and then actually process it through my body. Like, there's no way around it. That's the first thing, is there's no way around it. We have to learn how to feel it and move through it. Like, there's no magic pill, but it's getting comfortable with the uncomfortable feeling. And the first step in that is learning how to live inside of your body and not just your mind.
Yeah.
It's learning this somatic awareness practice that we teach everyone, is what are you noticing in your body and the subtleties that you're noticing in your body. Like, when I'm in a conversation with somebody that is triggering me, or like there's fear coming up, like, how quickly can I become aware that I'm actually holding my breath right now? If I'm not aware until after, or if I'm not aware through that whole conversation, then I'm not actually going to be able to do anything about it. But a lot of the times we're afraid of we're afraid of sharing. Like, there's the physical body part of it, which ideally is done with another person, or, for yourself in a safe place, laying down. You can shake, you can move your body, you can use your breath, you can use your sound. Those are your tools to move it through your body, is shaking, moving your body, using your sound. Making sound is one of the most important pieces of somatic release, because it sends a signal to your nervous system that there's been a discharge, that there's been a release, that the threat has been solved. So if every part of you wants to scream as loud as you can right now, but you're like holding it in, like, that scream is going to be the thing that tells your body that the threat has been solved and that you're safe. Right? So there's the physical component of it, and then there's the mind part of it, that is pretty complex, because we're humans and we're social creatures and we have all this complexity. But it's from there, it's like, how quickly can you notice when you're in binary thinking? How quickly can you notice if you feel pressure right now to make a decision? And how quickly can you notice if you're not saying the thing that you actually want to say?
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the biggest one.
I was going to say, as soon as you said that, I was like, that's actually probably number one on the list, to recognize like
Yeah.
where you're holding back your truth. And I know in breathwork sessions, in the one-on-one work that I do with clients, I know a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times when fear comes up, there's this like contraction in the throat. it feels like this heaviness that either gets stuck right here or right here, right? It's that recognition that there's actually a greater truth that's wanting to move through me, but I'm actually afraid of what that truth means.
Yeah. There's kind of a rule principle that I have in my head, and that I run, that I actually don't know if I've said this before, but this is kind of how I operate is, when it comes to our mind with fear, it's usually around a decision that has to be made. Whether the decision is to say the thing that we need to say that we've been holding back, whether it's taking the action of I'm quitting my job, or I'm leaving this relationship, or I'm starting this business, or I'm going to start this art project or this podcast or whatever it is. It's a decision that I'm going to do something or say something. And this is the reality is that there are kind of three choices that you really have in the moment. And the choices are, you do the thing or say the thing and you deal with whatever the fear whatever the outcome is on the other side of it. You take the other direction, which could be I'm just going to avoid it, and then or you let life decide for you. And that is can be an incredibly painful thing for a lot of people, that we don't realize. A lot of us, we avoid something because we're in fear. We don't say the thing. We don't actually move towards it or decide to leave it, right? Move away from it. And if we stay in that middle ground, well, then we have to be okay with life deciding for us. And that can be incredibly painful, because then we have to deal with the consequences of life deciding for us. And then we actually didn't flex our human superpower, which is the choice that we have, which to me is claiming that I'm actually the creator of my life. That's at the end of the day. Fear, what it does is it takes away your power of being the creator of your life. We all have choice over everything, over most things, right? There's things we don't have choice over, like my body and who my parents are and all of those things. But around the choices that we have, that is our greatest human superpower. And the more fear we have, the less options of choice that we see, and thus binary thinking, right?
Yeah.
We don't see all the other options of B, C, D, E that can potentially happen.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Jaggers, like, what would you say to somebody who, and I hear this a lot in just people asking questions about breathwork. Like, I'm afraid to do a breathwork session. I'm afraid of what I might encounter. I'm afraid what might come up. But that fear that's actually stopping them from meeting themselves on a deeper level is sometimes actually, like, that is where, and I remember reading a quote that whatever you fear the most holds your greatest power and potential. So, like, how do you help people to be with that fear, to see that there's actually something that's on the other side that can be incredibly valuable when that fear can be all-consuming?
Yeah. It's like Carl Jung, the cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek, right?
Yeah.
There's different ways about it, and there's no way around it. You kind of have to go into it, but you can titrate it a little bit at a time. And what happens then is, if someone's going into a breathwork session, and we've all seen this, is like, oh, I'm afraid to do this. Well, if you're afraid to lay down and breathe with yourself for an hour, but you're taking different medications or eating foods, or we're doing so many things in our life that have so many other repercussions versus laying down and breathing with yourself for an hour. But maybe that might be the scariest thing for you. And what helps is like, that's why I love breath work, is because you can do it a little bit at a time. It's different than like psychedelics where it's like you are being taken for the ride and you don't have control, right? The way that you can help someone process fear is by reminding them that they have control over things. Because the more fear that I'm in, the more stasis I'm craving, the more like I want to feel like I can grab a hold of things and I'm actually in control. So, I'm not, that's why we like, we teach in our trainings that we're not pushing people in any emotions whatsoever. We're just creating a space for a little bit to bubble up at 10% at a time. And a lot of the times when someone opens the door 10% and they peek in and then they go a little bit further and then, they go a little bit further and it just all comes out. Well, 9 times out of 10, it's not near as bad as what they you think it is. Like,
Yeah.
we forget, because you're in fear, you're in the binary thinking as if I go into it, then that's going to be me forever. Versus realizing that you're a process and you're a verb. And if I go into it, well, this actually might just be the next 90 minutes. And I'm going to be a completely different person on the other side of it.
Yeah.
It's what you resist persists. And, what you have to decide what you're okay with. So if you're okay with something persisting, well, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like what you always say, what you're not changing, you're choosing. And so if you're not changing that state of just always staying in fear, of just always continuing to be like, okay, it's just too scary, I'm just not going to do it. It's just going to continue to perpetuate that. You're never actually going to see who could you be on the other side of that? Like, who could you be if you met that fear full on and just did it anyways?
Yeah. Another example that, I've worked with some people in, God, relationships are always just such a prime example because
Yeah.
they are the training ground of where all of our dynamics just play out. But a lot of people are there was a couple that I was working with that had been together for 15 years, and neither of them were happy in the relationship, but both of them were afraid to actually tell the other person their truth. So, and both of them were afraid of like the relationship ending. But I'm like, well, actually, your relationship is ended right now. It's over because neither of you are telling your truth. So it's actually over right now. So you might as well just go feel the fear right now of it being over, and feel the grief and feel all of it right now, because it's done. And they went into that, both of them, and this was separately, but going into actually feeling the fear around it being like ending and the grief around it, they came back and they're not afraid of the relationship ending. So they actually now told each other the truth and then could actually do something about it.
This reminds me of like my high school sweetheart of,
Yeah.
we're in a relationship that was incredibly toxic, very verbally abusive to each other. And we were driving through Seattle one day and I could just feel that there was just this heaviness. And we stopped at a stoplight and I was just like, I sometimes wonder if we were just better friends than in a relationship. And in that moment, she was like, I feel exactly the same way. And all of a sudden, it was like the fear of saying that thing completely dissipated. The fear of like what was going to come next completely dissipated, because there was this realization that it was mutual. We both wanted out. We both wanted to move forward, but the fear of hurting one another was the thing that was actually stopping us from saying that truth. And yet, through saying that truth, it led to my life becoming so much more beautiful and finding better and better relationships through actually just sitting through that fear. Because part of that fear was also the fear of being alone. we'd been together for years and years and years. And then the thought of like, okay, well, now what is life like when you don't have somebody that's there, even when it's not necessarily somebody that you actually still want to be with?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like if the fear of the fear itself is, how do I say this? The fear itself is the thing that is, we're not afraid of the actual, the fear itself. We're afraid of the outcome in a
Yeah.
way, or we're
Yeah.
afraid of we're afraid of feeling it through our body. We're not afraid of the actual outcome, if that makes sense. But that's keeping us from actually getting to a sort of outcome, which is then keeping us in the fear. It's this cycle that happens. And it's, I guess it's easier to, because fear is very complex, it's easier to kind of see this with anger, meaning that if I am avoiding feeling anger, then I am actually going to continue to create situations that are going to make me more angry, because I'm actually not going to express the anger that's going to create the boundary around something. And then people are going to continue to cross my boundary. And then I'm going to continue to get more angry, right?
Yeah.
If I'm feeling the fear of not saying my truth, well, then I'm going to continue to have to deal with the circumstances that are somebody not really knowing what I'm feeling or what I'm thinking, and I'm going to be disconnected from that, and I'm going to create more disconnection from it until I actually feel the fear of doing it and then saying it afterwards. So, you asked me the question around like, what's the process for somebody, is go feel the fear of the worst outcome that's going on in your head. You don't need to travel in your mind and go through the loops and tunnels of all the different things, but can you actually just feel the fear inside of your body of what it means to be alone? And then you will actually be able, once you do that, then you're not going to have the fear of being alone. So you can actually tell the person your truth, and then you can actually be in the relationship, right?
Mm. I feel like this is a really beautiful way to like utilize visualization, of actually visualize the outcome that you are afraid of, and almost like living through that in the moment, so that you can have that tangible felt sense of like, okay, if the worst thing happened, this is how it feels. And if you're still living and breathing from that, then there really isn't anything to be fearful of, right? Like,
Yeah.
I shared on the last podcast that on my 30th birthday, I jumped out of a plane at 13,500 feet. Free falled for 60 seconds before the chute opened up. And the moment that that door of the plane opened up, I was the first one to go out. The jumper that I was with, it was tandem. He leaned me out to see the view, and I instantly was like, I don't want to do this. This is terrifying. But I'm strapped to another dude that's pushing me closer and closer to the door, and then all of a sudden we go out. And in that moment, the fear shifted from a all-encompassing fear, I felt it through every part of my body, to pure and utter aliveness, exhilaration, of realizing that, oh my gosh, I just went through something that I wanted to do since I was 17 when I packed parachutes for an entire summer, but couldn't jump because I was underage, to now actually being able to do it and see the valley that I grew up in from a completely different view. And in an instant, it shifted my perspective on so many different things that I feared: spiders, the dark, being alone, of death, because I actually met that thing. So it was interesting at how actually moving through something that instilled a lot of fear allowed a lot of fear to just naturally dissipate. And fears that have never come back. Like I live outside in the woods, as you know. I can go outside in pitch black without a light on and feel totally fine. Whereas before that instance, I would be worried about what's bumping in the night. Like, what might I run into? What's the creature that's lurking around the next tree that's going to get me? So it's interesting at how much can quickly change when we actually face the thing that we fear the most.
Yeah. And my question for you and everyone listening to it is, what fear that you have actually stepped into has been true? Like, what fear that you've actually stepped into has actually, like, the story in your head has actually been true about it?
I honestly can't come up with a single thing. Back to
Same.
that fear is false evidence appearing real. Like, the majority of the
Yeah.
things that we fear, the majority of things that we worry about are never going to come to fruition.
And that's why processing it through the body first is so necessary, because if not, then the mind will just continue to run rampant, and it will actually, because the only fear that's going to that's going to actually create the situation is the fear that's stuck inside of you. I'll give you an example, and this might be a little vulnerable, but I got the relationship examples here. It's so,
They're
yeah,
good.
they're so good. Yeah. Cause everyone can relate to them. But, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I was in a relationship kind of in the beginning of building this business. And, I started to grow and the business started to grow, and I was invited to different events, and I was invited to different, I just had a lot of momentum that was now happening in my life. And my partner at the time was definitely one, she was definitely, had a really strong inner critic from the fear, but she was expressing to me that she was afraid of losing me because I was gaining popularity, and I was, invited to all of these different things, and I was, quote unquote, like winning, if you will, at whatever that means. And I'm like, well, no, like, we are a team together, and my success is our success. And there was this, like, she couldn't, and part of it was probably me too, like, I didn't have a deep understanding of how to continue to create safety within this, because that is probably the biggest pieces. One, someone has to be willing. Two, it's created relationally often.
Yeah.
But that fear continued to control her in a way of, like, you know the way that she was interacting with me over and over again was starting to create more and more disconnection, which was pushing me further and further away. So, which actually created the reality of us breaking up, which, I don't know how good of an example that is, but it's the fear that's stuck in us that's going to create the reality, because now that's the lens that we're seeing the world from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus that, well, it just makes me think of, the quote from, I'm full of quotes, but there's a quote from Terence McKenna that is, nature loves courage. And, this is the understanding that all mystics have had and have tried to share with us, is that, when you hurl yourself off the side of a cliff into the fear, well, life usually catches you with a feather bed. And I can think about every time that I've had a big fear that I've actually just processed through my body, moved into it, said the hard thing to the person. It's never been a cliff where I fall and die. It's always been a feather bed where life catches me and lifts me up, and things actually get better from it.
Yeah. It makes me think of when I years ago was first learning to ride a mountain bike. And the buddy that I was riding with was like, if you see something in the trail, don't focus on it. Focus down the trail. Because if you
Yeah.
focus on
Yep.
what
Yep.
you don't want to hit, you're going to hit it. And that's
Yep.
kind of the same
Yep.
truth with fear. Like, when we focus on the thing that we're actually afraid of, we don't see the thing that's on the other side of it. But if we focus on what's
Yeah.
on the other side of it, it's going to make it that much easier for us to actually sit with it, to move it through, and then actually get to that thing that's on the other side of it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like if I say don't think about monkeys right now.
I can't
You're
not
going to
think
think
about monkeys.
you can't not think about it, right?
Yeah.
Um, would love to, for those of you that are tuning in live, if you guys want to throw some questions in the chat around fear specific questions, we'd love to continue to answer those.
So there's
We're so
one that
excited
I
to have this.
did see through that came a little bit ago that was around what about things that have come true that you were afraid of? And there wasn't an example in that question, but like as thinking about it, the example of like if you have the fear of your partner cheating on you and then they cheat on you, that fear
Yeah.
then became real. That then proves that, okay, well, you were right to be fearful around that thing. And this is the challenge of the mind, right? Because then it locks into that and puts a pin in it and then starts looking in the future for, okay, where are all the other areas where this might happen? So how can somebody reframe that story in their mind that maybe this is going to happen in every relationship that I'm in?
Yeah. So the fear is a compass, and it's, if I have fear that my partner is cheating on me, well, there's nothing that I can do about it, right? But the fear in that is probably having the necessary conversations that need to be had, right? There's other aspects of the fear that's probably stopping you from doing the thing. The fear, maybe it's actually telling you the truth in a way, but it's probably deeper than the being cheated on. It's like the relationship's ending, or uh, there's probably deeper ones in there. Well, if I feel the fear of that happening, and then it is true, well, then it's going to get me closer to the other side of what's going on. It's just going to continue to move me closer to the thing that it is I'm wanting, right?
Yeah.
If I'm staying stuck in the fear, then I'm probably not going to do anything about it, right? There has been time that actually happened to me. And I know that it's not been a pattern for me, but when I was much younger, I think it's like high school, but I had this fear and it caused me to like look at my partner's phone. And I've never done that before, but I went ahead and did it. And thus it was actually true. But that being said, me feeling that fear and moving into it and doing the action that I needed to do got me to the other side of it quicker than, because what we actually fear more than anything is being stuck in it. We fear being stuck in it. Whether or not the fear is true or it's false, the real fear is being stuck in it. And we can talk about how to like repattern. We can talk about the repatterning of it, and that happens from a bottom up perspective, because, well, I'll get into that, but it's not the outcome. It's the fear of being stuck in the fear in our body, right? So, this is something that we teach inside of Somatic, is that if I want to have a more expanded consciousness, if I want to, if I want to shift my energy towards like expansion and possibility versus the fear that's going to continue to take me down to the worst possible outcome, well, then I have to create an expansive an expansive body, an expansive nervous system, an expansion of my safety inside of myself to actually access that. Now, there's so many dynamics that happen with me trying to create the safety inside of my nervous system. Well, one is like, who are the people I'm surrounded by? Because our nervous systems are shaped completely by the people that we're surrounded by. That's why the partner that you have is one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life, right? The people that you're surrounded by, your nervous system is going to be shaped by it. And that's why we're constantly scanning for safety around us. And so And then on top of that is working through our own stuff, our own patterns, and understanding a lot of our developmental stuff that happen. If I have a fear of fear of being alone or fear of being abandoned, well, it's really important that my partner actually understands that, and I understand that. Like, I understand what my core wounds or my developmental stuff that went on, because the more that I understand that, the more I'm going to be able to pull my consciousness back and actually witness it happening in the moment. Because if
Yeah.
not, then I'm just going to act from it. But so there's just the somatic piece of it, but understanding that your mind is going to create based on the state of your body. And so working through it on a body-based level first is going to actually free the mind up to create new stories. You could see the mind as almost like the glasses that you're wearing, and those glasses are based on the state of your body. If I'm in a contracted state or in a state of fear, then everything I see is going to be contracted in fear.
Yeah.
Versus if I start to create the feeling of safety, I start to change the people that I'm around. I start to surround myself by incredible humans. I start to take the shift of, this is like, go listen to the podcast on alignment, because a lot of this stuff deals with the aspect of becoming more aligned in our life. If I start to align my body, making healthier food decisions, doing my nervous system regulation practices, working on my healthy relationships, well, notice what starts to happen to the quality of your mind. Truly, the lens that you're viewing the world and the stories that you're telling yourself are going to change.
So really what I'm hearing is it kind of doesn't really matter like what the fear is or what the story is or what the situation is. It all comes back to developing more somatic awareness, developing more around how your body is actually trying to communicate what's moving through, which that thought was stirred up by one of the comments that just came through of they say the body is the mind. And is that correct? And I've got my own belief on it, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say, Jaggers.
Yeah. Well, I go back to the root word of soma, which is actually your living wholeness, which, like, the Greek, it's a Greek word that they didn't separate mind from body. They didn't separate body from spirit. It's all one. And I think for the process of understanding it is like we teach mind body connection, but you can't separate it because it's affecting each other.
Yeah.
So you have your living wholeness, and they are, your, I've heard the term body mind, and that actually is somatic because it's bottom up, it's body affecting the mind. And they go both ways, but like I've said, because of our evolutionary biology, and we're animals first, and our neocortex, which is the thinking part of us, which to me is actually the tip of our antenna, that part has been the most recently developed part. So we have all these animalistic and mammalian, we have a reptilian part of us that is the oldest part of us, which is the thing that happens first. Then we have the mammalian aspect of us, which is our social and emotional dynamics, which kind of happens second. And then we have the neocortex part of us, which is this, this brain that creates stories and, can project things. And so that's why I like to follow that process the most, because it's the way that we've been developed. But the other visual that I like to see is that the state, like my body, my nervous system is an antenna, and the state of that antenna, meaning the dial that's going on and the clarity of that antenna, meaning that if I have a bunch of emotions that are trapped inside of my body, it's blocking the signal. But the state of my antenna is going to be what I'm tuning into. I think Aristotle said that the mind is like working with birds in the sky. There's like passing birds all of the time, but the the key to it is like, how do you land the bird? Like, which birds do you land, right? Which
Yeah.
birds do you call in and get them to land? And that's like the art form of like, okay, this thought is actually one that I'm going to identify with, and this thought is actually like, oh, I don't really like that thought. Cool, I can continue to just let that one fly through the air.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting at how easy it is to kind of get lost in the birds, right? Get lost into
Yeah, oh
all of
yeah.
the different ones, but how do you begin to decipher what the bird is that you actually need to call in? And again, this is more of a rhetorical question, but this is like, again, coming back to that somatic awareness so that you can develop your own understanding of what's actually true and in alignment for you versus maybe what's one of those thoughts that is coming from another individual that you think is the direction that you need to go in, or is maybe the easier, less fearful path to go in versus actually leaning into the thing that's really causing the fear that's actually the path that you're meant to go
Yeah, well said, well said.
down. This has been an absolutely unbelievable conversation, and I think one of the biggest takeaways, at least for me, is to not allow the fear from trusting your body.
Yeah, not a say a little bit more on that.
So it's easy when you're stuck in that process of fear to fall
Mm-hmm.
into the thoughts, to fall into that spiral, to fall into the false
Mm-hmm.
evidence, that then all of that is leading you further and further out of what you're actually sensing, what you're actually
Mm-hmm.
feeling. And when you get deeply rooted into your body, even in a moment of fear, for me at least, that's what's allowed me to actually see the truth beyond the fear. Not the false evidence that the fear is trying to show me, but the truth that's on the other side of that. And for me at least, that's what's really made it easier over the long run for me to continue to do those things that make me fearful.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the oh, I don't know where it went. Am I still here?
Yeah.
Sorry, my window got closed. Um, it's understanding that the fear wants to move. The fear wants to move. The emotion wants to move. It wants to move in your body. How quickly can I get it to move? Because what we are really actually afraid of is staying stuck in it,
Mm.
because that's what's going to control us. That's what's going to keep us away from choice. So, and in the moment, moving it through our body feels like the scariest thing.
Yeah.
And this is, we see this so often, is that people that have glasses on that view the world as a scary place, it's a reflection of that the internal world is probably a scary place.
Mm. Which that actually is really in alignment with one of the questions that just came through of like, what can you say about the connection between fear and anxiety and panic? And how can we resolve this through
Mm,
somatic work?
yeah, that's such a good question. So I'll try to tie this all together, but a lot of the times, yeah, if my internal world is scary and I'm afraid to go into it, then the external world is going to be incredibly scary as well. The same thing happens in like our ability to be seen and heard from people, because if my internal world is scary, I'm actually going to be afraid to go connect with people, because people are naturally going to see my internal world. And some of us, we develop all these masks and coping systems and all of these things that keep us from people being able to see us. But then the world becomes scary because it becomes this game of like, oh, connecting people becomes draining to me.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's draining is because they're not actually connecting to me, they're connecting to all my filters. right? All my filtration process, which is the thing that takes a lot of energy to maintain, right? A lot of us like, I wish I could just be myself around people. So there's the aspect of being seen, and I think this would be a good topic for the next podcast, is like visibility and being seen and heard.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like fear and anxiety, is that anxiety, and we covered this not that long ago, but anxiety is just a bubbling up of truth. And the fear is actually going to stop the bubbling up of that truth, right? So anxiety is a bubbling up of something that I'm probably afraid of. But the fear wants to move through your body. Your body doesn't want to stay stuck in fear. It
Right.
doesn't. It wants to, like I said, the first thing is it wants to move through your body. It doesn't want to be held in your mind. Like your body's not against you, right? And a lot of the times we think of having an anxiety attack as like my body is against me, right? But it's actually no, it's trying to give you this compass of something is bubbling up that it wants you to look at because it's probably trying to help you in some sort of way. But you can't do anything until you've actually processed it. And so the bubbling up of this truth, when we continue to push it down over and over again, it creates depression because it becomes incredibly tiring to continue to push that truth down.
Yeah.
So this is how fear gets connected to anxiety, which then gets connected to depression. So, but the fear of actually just feeling the truth and letting it kind of bubble up is the thing that's going to create the outcome that we're actually looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. So the fear anxiety reveals the things we may need to work on. So fear and anxiety end up being a gift within itself.
Absolutely. It is. It's this process of trying to align our life, right? If there's an anxiety that continues to bubble up around like what I'm doing for work right now is just not in alignment for me anymore, and I continue to push it down, and then it becomes really tiring to continue to push it down, and it comes back even stronger as a panic attack, right? Then maybe I'll look to outside substances to help me because I can't do it alone because it's incredibly tiring. So I need the help of like alcohol, or I need the help of something else to continue to push it down.
Right.
Right. But then me pushing it down is going to actually keep me in that place of what's not in alignment to me. Yeah. And so it's a cycle that happens over and over again.
It's interesting to think about how often I can think of so many times in my life where this was true, where it was, instead of just facing the discomfort and fear of changing, it was easier to just numb the feelings that were coming up. It was easier to just numb and continue to keep doing the thing that I was doing instead of actually making that conscious choice to make a change and see what happens next. And I feel like, I mean, you just walk through the streets of Seattle and you can see this of just mass populations that are numbing themselves from the reality that they find themselves in. And yet, what if it was just as simple as sitting down and leaning into what is the body actually trying to communicate, and can we actually listen to it?
Yeah, and minimizing the time between it, right? Because like I said, the fear is that we're going to be stuck in it, which means that we're wasting time, right? Or our life is going to continue. And so the quicker you step into the fear, the quicker you embrace the intensity of it, which is the thing that most of us are actually afraid of. As the sooner I can just embrace that is a principle that I learned from a mentor of mine, is that, embrace intensity. If something's coming up, can I learn to embrace the intensity? Because the quicker I can embrace the intensity, the quicker I'm actually going to move through that thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times I have an avoidant tendency. I like to avoid things. And so that's a perfect medicine for me, is to like, how quickly can I embrace the thing? Because the longer I'm stuck in it, the further out of alignment my life becomes. The longer I don't let myself feel the fear, the longer it's going to take me to actually take the action on the thing.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I resonate with you as well, of just like putting things off and kind of procrastinating on certain
Yeah.
things. And it's always so funny because like the things I push off for the longest, when I finally get around to doing it, it doesn't take me very long. And I always ask myself, like, why did I push this off so long? Like, why did I make it in my head that it was a way bigger deal than what it actually was? And I think this just really encompasses fear in and of itself, is we make it to be much bigger than what it actually is.
Yeah, it's the binary thinking, which
Yep.
is going to go to the worst, like it's going to swing the pendulum to the worst possible thing. It's the pressure to like, you need to make a decision right now. If not, then everything's going to end.
It's that life or
And then it's
death
also
sense.
it's the life or death sense. And then it's also the aspect of, what was the third one that I said? It's going to create these like false endings of things,
Mhm.
these false narratives of what the possibility is actually going to be.
Yeah.
And then that's going to keep us in that place longer than we need to be.
Yeah. So there's one more, well, there's a bunch of questions that came through, but just for sake of time and everyone's space today, I want to dive into this one. If people around you deny the truth when you are sharing your fears, if the person you projecting your fear on is telling you you are um, deregulated and trying to change your perspective, who do you trust when you have things you can't seem to be able to shake off?
That is there's a lot in that question, but let's try to break it down. So there's people around that deny my truth when I'm sharing my fear. And if they're like, if the person, like, you are, well, I would actually prefer if this person can try to rewrite the question maybe in like one sentence. But, you know, what I'm getting from this is that, like, no one else is responsible for your truth. Meaning that if you say your truth and then whoever you're around isn't, is denying it, well, then you have your answer. And around, like, you have your answer, and it probably just isn't the answer that you're wanting.
Mm.
So there's a piece around this, is a lot of the times we're afraid of doing something because it's like, we're actually afraid of the of it, of us not getting the answer that we want. Meaning that if I share my truth and this person is denying it, well, all I can do is say my truth. And then from there, you've done your part. And then you have to kind of look at reality and how it is. You have to kind of just stop looking at the words and the things that are being said. And you have to kind of just look at what is reality right now. If I've said my truth, if I've done my part, what is happening in reality right now? And then ask yourself, how long are you willing to stay in the same situation?
Yeah. Beautiful. Jaggers, as always, we dove down another deep rabbit hole into, the realms of fear and everything wrapped up in that. I think this is another one of those episodes that I know I am going to be coming back to and re-listening to many times, because there's just so many different nuances, I think, around
Mm-hmm.
fear and around how we can move it through. But to just land the whole bird home here is that really it all comes back to the body. allowing yourself to be present with what is alive here and now, not what the mind is trying to project into the future, but what is true right now, and leaning more and more into that versus these false evidences that are appearing real.
Absolutely, Adam. Yeah, it goes back to everything that we stand for here at Somatic is one, it's body-based intelligence, which just we have to understand the manual to how our body developed, which is there are certain processes that our body needs to go through that we just can't deny. We cannot deny the nature of our being, and the further that we deny nature, the more sick we become, right? And that is nature both outside in the world, and that is the nature of our body because we are nature. The second is connection is incredibly important. And the people that we're connected to, the work that we're connected to, how connected we are to our truth, and how quickly we can stay connected to that and act from that and stay congruent from that. And yeah, it's processing it through the body and then bringing it to connection, bringing it into connection. And this is why inside of our, practitioner trainings is we dive deep into like really drilling over and over and over again, moment to moment, noticing what's going on inside of your body on the subtlest level, back and forth, what's going on the emotional level, and then what's playing in your head. And then from there, processing the fear that's inside of our inner critic so we can actually realize when it's the inner critic talking. And then going through, obviously, the thing that, in my opinion, processes fear more than anything is the somatic breathwork session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jaggers, thank you so much for just continuing to pour your wisdom into all of us and just helping to really create this more profound understanding of how we can be more human, how we can deepen our connection to ourselves, deepen our connection to each other, and really just continuing to try and progress and find this like peace and balance within ourselves to be fully with what's actually alive in our life.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I absolutely love having these conversations with you so much. And for those of you that are just tuning in for the first time, you can find these episodes inside of the school community and then also on Spotify or any other platform. And if you go check us out on Spotify or any other platform, if you can, leave us a comment, give us a 5-star review, it would just help me and Adam to continue to grow and expand this podcast. And to be honest with you, I absolutely love doing this. And on Spotify, it is called the Mind Body Mentor podcast. So we will, the next one is not going to be this coming Friday, but it'll probably be the Friday after that. And if you're inside of the school community, then we'll give you all the updates.
Yeah. And I'm really excited to see you next week in our in-person training.
Let's go. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adam.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for joining us live. Thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next episode.